Oh, Minecraft. Whether you play it for nostalgia or have recently jumped onto the declining wagon, we're all familiar with the 2011 sandbox game. I mean, creating your own 3D generated world using different blocks sounds great, right? Yep, that's what I thought. With any popular game comes fan theories, and from fan theories comes creepypastas. God bless the internet. So today we've thrown together our list of the top 10 Minecraft creepypastas. Hey guys, welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm your host Lucy McPhee. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy this video, or just creepypasta videos in general. Also, if you want to be notified anytime we upload a new video, make sure to hit that notification bell. All done? Let's jump in. In at number 10, Entity 303. Now this creepypasta describes a terrifying encounter with a hacker in one of the Minecraft servers. Hackers alone are creepy. Combine them with 3D people made of blocks and I'm out of here. So the first encounter begins with an email from a player named Frankie. He goes on to describe a game of Minecraft he was playing with a group of friends. They were all communicating via Skype while working on a big city build and game. Now during this time, a few of them noticed something odd in the chat. An unidentified player had typed "stop," the code to shut down the server. Now they were playing at a private server, so it's essentially impossible for another player to be there with them, unless that player is a hacker. They checked the control panel but it showed only their usernames, no one else's. Odd. They decided to ignore it and continued on with their game, until they caught a glimpse of a white figure in the distance of the desert. They fell silent. Frankie noticed that one of his friends wasn't moving and also wasn't speaking in chat. Assuming it was just lag in the game, he didn't take too much notice, until they disconnected from the server. Before Frankie could panic, his screen began to glitch and the chat started spamming the phrase "object successfully summoned by player number 303. While all of this is happening, Frankie notices that someone else has joined their Skype chat, an unknown contact. The unknown requests to put on FaceTime. It's too dark to make them out, but they begin to speak, saying, "Make a wish and say goodbye to your friends." The Skype call drops and Frankie's computer shuts off. The next day, only one of his friends is at school. Concerned, he gets in touch with his friend's parents. One of them, John, had committed suicide, leaving a note that read, "I can't take this anymore. I can't sleep. I'm afraid he's watching me. I can't live like this knowing someone is after me, wanting me to die a slow, painful death. I'm sorry, Mum. I love you." On the bottom corner of the page was a phrase in small text that he could just make out. It said just 3 words: "Make a wish." In at 9, LUNAR. Our author begins this creepypasta by describing how 2 weeks ago he was working on a statue in his house in-game when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned, but nothing was there. He continued working on the statue's head but could still hear the sound of footsteps. He turned quicker, this time, but still nothing. He figured this was down to an in-game error and ignored it. By nighttime he had finished the statue and quickly went into his house to get away from the noises and footsteps, fearing there was a hostile mob hunting him down. He clicked the bed and his character began to sleep. His PC then shut off with a boom and a blank white screen. After a few moments it turned back on, but the game was frozen. After a while it went back to normal, and not wanting to go outside, stayed in his house. He then got teleported outside. His character was now staring at his front door. Weird. In a panic he tried to enter, but the door was locked from the inside. He looked around and up at the night sky. It was then that he saw the moon, but it wasn't a normal moon. It was now retextured as the moon from Majora's Mask from Legend of Zelda. The moon began to grow bigger and bigger, spurting fireballs before a chat popped up from the moon itself. It read, "All will die. LUNAR is the only powerful demon there is." The game then crashed and the player was transported to a new world, named Error Unknown Name, and that's where our creepypasta ends. In at 8, 1241. This creepypasta comes from a user named Jack. He was playing a single player world, trying to find obsidian to get to the second world of Minecraft. He mined a cave for a few minutes until he found obsidian. He grabbed some blocks and exited the cave, running back to his house. However, his house was not how he left it. It was previously made of cobblestone and wood, but it was now made from nether bricks. He entered the house, but it was empty, except for a shulker box containing a book. Confused, he realized someone must have entered his world, perhaps a friend playing a joke. After a few more minutes, a player enters his server with the username 1241. After attempting to remove the player, Jack's computer crashes. He reboots his computer and re-enters the game, hoping the player has been removed. When he spawns, he's in the nether, but there's another person with him, staring at him from a distance. Take a look for yourself. After, Jack closed the game and deleted his save file. I guess we'll never know who player 1241 was. In at 7, Exception. This creepypasta comes from an unknown user who began playing the game after a number of years away from it. This is where things start to get a little odd. He reached the 6th night when he discovered some lava source blocks placed randomly around the game, one being next to his house. He collected them with a bucket, but they began to respawn until there was around 13. He ignored it, thinking it was a new feature added by the devs. Veteran creepypasta readers will know this is never the case. He continued to expand his house and then went mining for additional parts. Halfway down, he discovered some cobblestones that was blocking his path, which he was positive he didn't put there. He used a brand new axe to break through the stone, but it broke on first hit. At this point, he began to grow suspicious, believing the game may have a bug. He started to notice a few other odd features. Forests were sparse, torches would disappear, and random fires would ignite around him. He posted in a Minecraft forum hoping to find some answers, but received none, until he got a private message from another user who had experienced something similar. He thought it odd that only 2 people in the community would have experienced this. After talking with the other user, they began to realize that they weren't alone in their worlds, and that there was some kind of entity stalking them. They created a game together to see if the weird happenings would still occur, and that they did. At one point in the game, a code on 9 different signs spawned in the middle of nowhere, reading 010010101001, and so on. They created a new server from scratch and the same issue arose. The same signs spawning out of nowhere and random fires igniting their homes. During one of their games, our author turned around and saw something new. A thing. Something at the end of a mine shaft. He tried to screenshot it, but then his game froze and crashed. After this, he realized there's an entity, destroying worlds repeatedly, stalking innocent players, and harassing them until their world is nothing but dust. In at 6, Darkness of the Farlands. This creepypasta comes from a player who was checking out a single-player Minecraft beta. The player knew of a glitch that when entering a particular set of coordinates, the game would glitch and present you with a completely new set of landscapes. Pretty cool. During this, something caught his eye. In an area of the map covered in ice, he noticed a pattern that resembled a face. He moved on, thinking it's stupid to be frightened of a face. He paused the game to look up coordinates for a place called Farlands, a place where most players don't go because their computers can't go past it. Bored by the lack of glitches or lag, he jumped onto another game, but this time accidentally hit multiplayer. He wasn't alone though. A new player joined his server with the username Farman. He had black skin and a face like lava. Farman began to type, "Searching sessions ID database found. UUID tracked." The player realized this must be some kind of hack. He attempted to kick him out of the server, but quickly found he was no longer the owner. Farman began to type again. I quote, "Commencing FTP access breach. Complete. Wiping out files." End quote. His computer went black. He tried to restart it, but nothing. Then a message popped up. "Why did you try messaging with the lands beyond human reach?" The player restarted the computer again. This time it boots up normally. Everything was normal except for one text file on his desktop that read, "I'm not finished." In at 5, Shadow of Israfel. Now before we proceed, I should say this was scripted content by the guys over at Yogscast. That does not lessen the creepy nature of this pasta. This was a 27-part series, so for the sake of time, we're going to just focus on the main arc of the show. Okay, ready? This series is set in a fictional land of Minecraftia, where Zyphos and Honeydew, 2 fictional characters, encounter a handful of angry mobs and cows, because, of course. Through their trials and tribulations, they become worshipped by the citizens of the land. Then they must battle against an ancient evil named Israfel, and later on in Season 3, must fight against his cult. Because cults are trending right now, guys. Okay, cool, done, let's move on. In at 4, The Legend of Golden Brine. The user begins by describing how much he had been wanting Minecraft for his birthday, and like any millennial these days, he got it. Yay. He booted up his computer and clicked on the latest version of the game. He loaded into his first world but felt weird, as though something was lurking around him. He brushed it off and continued to play. However, instead of trees, there were golden towers. He ventured out and eventually found some hidden trees. He cut them down and figured he now had enough to build a house to survive the first night. He ended his game there for the night, but then when he went to bed, he still had that eerie feeling like something wasn't quite right. The next day he booted up the game, still feeling the lurking presence of something unknown. He spawned in and discovered multiple golden blocks in the shape of a cross, but not any cross, an upside down one. He entered his house to clear out stuff, but quickly realized everything was gone. All that was left was gold and golden blocks. Before he could react, TNT landed on his roof and blew it up. Classic. He respawned, but not back to where he died, but this time to a golden room, and across from him was a yellow player. The player began to type 01001111 and so on. Sound familiar? He attempted to quit the game, but nothing happened. The entity began to raise its head. He stared, motionless. After a few minutes, the entity began charging towards the player. But before he attacked, the ground under him broke and he fell into the void. The game then crashed. He tried to load back in, but an error popped up with one word: gold. In at 3, Null. Our author begins the story by describing the rumors he had heard about the legend of HEROBRINE, who we'll be touching on later, but had never encountered him in a game yet. This was until the devs released a new version that allowed players to revisit past versions of the game. So he did. That's when HEROBRINE showed himself. The player was walking through the forest when he saw a torch out of the corner of his eye. Thinking it was a joke the devs included about HEROBRINE, he ignored it. When the player reached his house, there was a sign with just one word on it: null. Assuming null meant not available, he assumed it was another joke. Guys, when will you learn there are no jokes in Minecraft? Just horror stories and cows. Out of nowhere he heard a loud noise. Turning around he saw HEROBRINE again, and then his game quit. He emailed the devs to see what was up, and a few months down the line he received a response that read, "We cannot say anything discussing the matter of HEROBRINE." Great. Cool. He stopped playing the game for a while but eventually returned to it. He discovered another torch followed by another sign that had Swedish writing posted on it. Translated the text, which read, "Help. Null is here. Tell everyone about me." The player turned around and once again there he was, HEROBRINE. He started to type, "I need help. Do you remember playing during the golden age of Minecraft? Do you remember the man? The one who was as black as night itself? Do not take this monster lightly. I am trapped. You can blame him. I am feared upon, being a very evil entity, but I'm not. That man you've seen before, he is different. He is evil." And that's where it ends. So, who is Null? And did HEROBRINE put him there? Is an entity out there trapping innocent players in the game? I guess we'll never know. In at 2, HEROBRINE. This classic creepypasta begins with a player chopping down trees. Amongst the fog he notices something moving. It was another character, one with a default skin, but his eyes were empty. Firstly, the player was in a single player mode, and secondly, there is no skin with empty eyes, which is really just a damn shame. Anyway, the player continued on, but began to notice things that appeared out of place. Tunnels in the rocks and small pyramids made of sand. The player, spooked, posted on a Minecraft forum detailing his experience with the game and the creepy man, but it was immediately deleted. He then received a private message from a user named HEROBRINE that said just one word: stop. He went to click on HEROBRINE's page, but it no longer existed. He began to receive more private messages, but this time from players who had experienced the same thing. After some research, they realized HEROBRINE was the name of the developer, Notch's brother. They sent him an email asking if he had a brother. The response was not what they expected. It read, "I did, but he is no longer with us." Spooky. And finally, in at number 1, Gigabyte7. This post, written by Enderchas, details how he was playing a regular single player world in Minecraft. Everything was normal until blood randomly appeared on the ground. Real blood. He continued playing the game but with slight fear, and that's when he saw blood leading down into a cave. He followed it because, of course, he entered the cave, placing torches along the way. As he got deeper down, he began to hear laughter. Evil laughter. Scared, he turned around and ran to the entrance, but it was now closed and had a sign in its place that read, "You are trapped." It was then that he saw someone. They began talking to him through his headset, saying, "There is no escape. I am Gib7, Minecraft's greatest hacker. There is no way to get rid of me." The player began to choke, coughing up blood. He mustered a sentence, "What are your intentions?" The hacker responded, "To kill you." Nope. No thank you, that's all I can handle today. Well, there we go guys. They were some creepy fucked up pastas. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if there are any that we missed, make sure to leave them in the comments down below, and maybe we can do a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video, and until next time, see you later. Don't fret, we're back. We've been reading your comments and you all asked for this, so I'm here to bring you our list of the top 10 Minecraft Creepypastas Part 2. Hey guys, welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm your host Lucy McPhee. In at 10, Green Steve. Now this creepypasta is a classic, and although debunked, I still think it deserves a place on our list. Created by Chicken78, they detail their experience playing Minecraft on the 1.8 update. They found a desert temple, breaking down the blue block and jumping down the hole. The player attempted to set off some TNT, but it didn't work. Then a Steve-esque character jumped down, only he was green. He hit the player before the room began to fill with creepers. Freaked out, the player quit the game and returned to it the next day. Thankfully, he was no longer in the creeper cave, but he was in a forest. A message began to pop up on his screen from Green Steve. It said, "I am coming." He found a house and immediately went in, but Green Steve appeared behind him, saying, "Hello, brother." The player then blew up. He deleted the world and immediately contacted the Minecraft devs. They responded by saying that one of the devs wanted to add Green Steve to the game, but they said no, but they caught him doing it anyway. Creepy. There are a handful of videos of Green Steve online, take a look. In at 9, Ember420. This unnamed user describes a creepy experience battling an ender dragon. They were heading for their stronghold for their boss fight. Entering, they noticed the portal sound was not the one they were accustomed to. It sounded like a scream. They also noticed that above them it was just air, no end stone. They began to climb anyway, heading for the end fountain, and in the distance they spotted the ender dragon flying straight towards them. Before the fight, the player had prepared, sharpening their sword to 1000, which would deal 500 damage, knowing the dragon had only 200 health. This should have been an easy battle. However, the player swung their sword, but the dragon only dropped to 50% health. The attack should have easily killed it. The player then pulled out their bow, shooting 20 arrows per second at the beast. It began to glitch, spinning around unlike the normal death animation. After a few moments, it halted, and the player noticed their own health bar had dropped to half a heart. They ran towards the end portal, but before they could leave, they looked up. Instead of a dragon egg, there was now a sign in its place. It read, "Woe to the player that has angered Ember420. Confused, the player jumped through the portal anyway, but instead of credits, another message popped up. Banned for 10 minutes, written in blood red. It also went on to read, "Ember420 is after you. Ember420 is here. I'm here." The color then changed from red to gold and it displayed one last message. "I am Ember420. In at 8, Abandoned. This creepypasta is short but still very effective. Our author describes being bored one day, so he jumped onto a game of Minecraft, as you do. He clicked on the play button looking through his worlds, but one jumped out. It was labelled Abandoned. He couldn't recall ever creating it, but decided to click on it anyway. Everything appeared normal except the sky was darker than usual. Ignoring it, he began to collect wood and craft swords. He made a house and a bed and went to sleep. However, when his character woke up, he was in a different room. It was completely dark with a sign that read just one word: Abandoned. He decided to send his character back to bed, hoping things would revert back to normal when he woke up, but this time he spawned into a dark hallway. He could only walk. As he reached the end, a black shadow emerged. It started to run, faster and faster until it was almost directly in front of him. Right before it reached him, the player was kicked out of the game. Guess we'll never know what the shadowy figure wanted, or what would have happened if the game hadn't booted him out. In at 7, Jim. Posted by Will Zombie, this creepypasta describes how he was checking out his Minecraft world, Creepland. He began to mine for ores, and while doing so his friend Peter asked to join the game. Not wanting to go in the mine, the player met Peter outside. Thunderstorms began rolling in, so they both ventured back to the player's house. However, on the way to the house, Peter completely disappeared. He checked to see if he was still in the world, but he was gone. Suddenly he heard a crackling noise. The back of his house was on fire. Knowing there was no way to put it out, he went to the nearest cave to seek shelter. Peter then re-entered the game, explaining that his game had crashed and he was booted out, but only after he caught a stone block move out of the corner of his eye. The two decided to split up in an attempt to figure out what caused the fire and the moving block. The player then stumbled across a stronghold, telling Peter about it as he got closer. Peter was gone though. Scared, the player ran into the stronghold, and there in front of him was a sign that read, "Jim is here." He then heard an ear-piercing noise coming from the other side of the door. He opened it and bam, his game crashed. Who is Jim and why is he sabotaging players' worlds? In at 6, He Sees You. This creepypasta comes from Block H1234. They tell us the story of jumping into Minecraft 1.8 and creating a new world called My Survival World. As the world loaded up, he noticed a blacked out figure in one of the caves. Ignoring it, he continued on, chopping down trees to build a crafting table. But while he was doing that, he was overcome with a feeling like someone was watching him, and turned around but no one was there, just some sheep and cows. He ignored his gut feeling and started building his own house, and then went on the hunt for a cave. Found one on the mountain and ran towards it, mining iron, coal and cobblestone. But as he attempted to leave, the exit was blocked. He created another exit instead and successfully managed to get out, beneath the sun and blue sky. But this wasn't real, it was just his imagination. It was the middle of the night and he could see hostile figures coming towards him. He ran towards his house as fast as he could to escape the mob. He went to sleep, but before he did, he saw a shadowy figure watching him from a distance through his window. The next day he went to investigate, finding a sign that read, "I see you." The player then heard screaming coming from his own house. He went to the hallway to investigate but heard nothing. He went back to his computer, but his character was now trapped inside a bedrock chamber. A black figure stood in front of him. It got closer and closer and closer before a message popped up that read, "I'd be running if I were you." Then the player's bedroom door flew open and a black figure appeared with yellow eyes. The next thing he knew, he was in the hospital. The doctors had told him he had fallen off a cliff. Freaky. In at number 5. 11. This pasta comes from an unknown user who was playing on a private Minecraft server. He had finally reached the end, surrounded by a vast ocean. He was equipped with diamond equipment and began to attack the dragon, easily defeating it. He collected the egg and ventured back home. The end music played and he spawned back in his stronghold, however things weren't quite right. The music he had left playing was no longer on, but had now been replaced by 11, a nightmare-inducing soundtrack. Soon after, a message appeared on the screen. 11 had joined the game. A message from 11 then popped up. The world will fall. Chaos, order, the past, the future. To one of these, the world will fall. Creeped out, the player requested to teleport to him. 11 accepted. He then spawned inside a mansion with massive spires and ice falling from the ceiling. There stood 11. His skin was generic, he had oversized eyes and a diamond sword on his back. The odd thing though was that his eyes were completely black. 11 then began typing in Latin. Thankfully, our player knows Latin, because don't we all? He translated some of the text that read, "All praise." However, it was the last piece of text that shook our user. 11 wrote his real name. Creepy. In at 4, Little Piggy. So this very weird creepypasta was posted by Frankie about an incident that occurred a few months prior. He was living with his parents and his 6-year-old brother Justin. During Justin's birthday, their mum gifted him with a Minecraft toy, a pig plush. Justin named it Little Piggy. How cute. During the night, Frankie was playing GTA 4 on his computer when Justin came in telling him that he had lost Little Piggy already. Frankie grabbed a flashlight and they went downstairs together, searching each room for the toy. They reached the kitchen, but Frankie felt uneasy, like something wasn't quite right. The air was bitter and Justin began to shiver. They then heard footsteps. Turning around and shining the flashlight, they saw nothing. Then out of the silence they heard oink. They reached the dining table and there he was, Little Piggy sitting on the table. He hugged it and then they heard it again. Oink. Frankie looked down at the pig, but it was now gone, and so was Justin. He tried to turn on the lights, but they quickly shut off. Heading down to the basement to find the generator, he heard a cry for help. He ran around the basement that had filled with fog, but Justin was nowhere to be found. Out of the darkness, he heard grunt over and over again, sounding more like a boar than a pig. Scared, Frankie, forgetting about the generator, ran up the stairs and stumbled into Justin's room. He turned around and saw it. A boar with long tusks and glowing red eyes. He ran towards it, hitting it repeatedly with his flashlight until the grunting ceased. Behind the boar shook Frankie to his core, Justin's lifeless body. In at 3, Name Data. Posted by Dark Wither, this user describes playing a game of Minecraft with a few of their friends. Walking around, the player was going to meet up with their friends, but they weren't responding. They checked to see if they were still in the chat, but it said they had all been killed by the same user. Name Data. Not worrying too much about it, they ventured on through a forest before finding a village. They had 4 emeralds and traded 2 for a diamond sword. Steal. They eventually fell asleep in the librarian's house. Waking up, there was now a church outside that wasn't there before, and a name tag inside that they couldn't quite make out. Thinking it was one of their friends, they got closer to the church, and the name tag became clearer. It read, Name Data. Getting closer, they realized there was a second name tag labeled this. They went inside, seeing it was a skeleton, but Name Data was nowhere to be found. They went outside and there it was, Name Data running away. The player chased after it. It eventually stopped and turned around. It had typical skin but with dark eyes, then started screaming. The game then glitched and crashed. As it shut down, a message appeared on the screen. Name Data is coming to your house to kill you at 3 AM. The players shut off their computer and never played it again. Classic. In at 2, Player 51. This user details playing on a private Minecraft survival server. He was collecting wood with a few friends for their house when he noticed some obsidian blocks floating in the sky. They used cobblestone to build up to them, but as they reached them they disappeared, causing the players to fall to their deaths. When they respawned, the player's friends said there was an error sign in the area. He went over to investigate but found nothing. They continued on completing the house, but after the player checked the server to see who placed the blocks and sign, he found an entity named Player 51. He clicked back onto the server, spawning inside a small room, entirely made up of obsidian blocks. He quickly realized he was the only player in the server, so he exited and started a new single player game. Once again though, he was spawned into a small room filled with obsidian, but there was now a door. He opened it and it led him into the actual world. It began to get dark, so he mined a small room in the mountain and went to sleep, but as soon as he did, he heard the door in his room open. When he awoke, it was closed. The next day he began to craft new tools, but on his return to his shelter he had footsteps approaching from behind. He turned around to see a dark figure with white glowing eyes. He chased after it. It turned and attacked the player with an iron sword. The game then crashed and a message appeared. Die. And finally, in at number 1, a friend. An unnamed user described staying up late one night and hopping onto a Minecraft server. He logged in, clicking edit to view some new snapshots. Ignoring the disclaimer, he saw the latest snapshot. Instead of the typical numbers, it said Friend Edition. Finding it odd, he downloaded it anyway. It took 42 minutes to download, much longer than usual. It eventually loaded up and he jumped in. He noticed the world seemed far more beautiful than before, as though the game had improved, or as though he was using a resource pack but he knew he wasn't. He clicked on his inventory but found nothing, so he decided to delete it. Instead, jumping into a world he had been working through for a while. He began to mine for iron, but eventually discovered something he'd been hunting for a while: diamond ore. He mined it and then quickly discovered another one. He had hit the jackpot. He mined and then rushed to exit the cave he was in. Only sand began to rush down, trapping him in. He attempted to mine his way out, but the stone was acting like bedrock and it began to fade to a dark texture. He wanted to exit the world but was too scared. Within the cave he began to hear footsteps, getting closer and closer and closer. He stopped, unable to move, before a humanoid player began to approach him with an emo-esque skin. A name tag appeared that read, Friend. The stranger typed, "Is this your world?" He responded, "Yes, why?" The stranger responded, "Liar, this is my world, I own this place." He stood there before being engulfed in the darkness. The bedrock then changed to endstone and the player was able to mine himself out, before he heard a deafening stomping in the cave. A purple boss bar appeared and the name said, Friend. Spikes began to appear, almost impaling the player, and the fireballs flew out of the stranger straight towards the player. He ran towards the stranger, swinging his sword, but no damage was taken. The stranger charged, knocking him down, leaving him with half a heart. One last fireball was thrown before the player died. Instead of the typical "you died" screen, this one was much darker and more sinister. The stranger was holding the player's head on a stick. Exiting the game, he attempted to jump into one of the other worlds, but they were all on fire, sabotaged by the stranger. Going back to his game, there were files labeled Friend. He immediately deleted them, and returning to his files, a new world appeared that said, You. He clicked on it and text appeared. It read, You tried to delete me. Why would you do such a thing? There's only one place where you belong. They engaged in one final boss battle, our player getting defeated once again. His game crashed and he went to bed, hiding under the covers before hearing a voice in his ear. You were just like my other victims, weak and fun. Thank you. Alright, were these creepy enough for you? Do you still want more? Let us know all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below and perhaps we can do a part 3. Once again, thank you to our sponsor today, Wix. Make sure you click on that link in our description and check out the website we made for our sister channel Top 10 Nerd. And don't forget to submit your creepypasta submissions and maybe you'll see them on our website. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you never miss another gaming vid. And until next time, see you later.
Hey friends, welcome to Top 10 Gaming, your one-stop spot for all things gaming, including creepypastas based on your favorite titles. Today we are going down the scary rabbit hole once again, but this time returning to one of our previous lists, Minecraft Creepypastas, Part 3. So without any more hesitation, let's jump in. Starting us off, BRINE. BRINE is another riff on the famous HEROBRINE creepypasta of sorts. Now the author of the story starts off by saying that they're a hacker. Not an evil one, but someone who likes to go into other people's worlds in Minecraft and see what they're up to. Like a voyeur of sorts. He's seen a lot of stuff, but on one particular hacking session, he saw something that stuck with him for years. He hacked into a server, spawning into a world close by to where those on the server were playing. The coding he used allowed him to be pretty much invisible. It did not alert the other players of his presence, so they had no idea that he was there. When he spawned onto this world, he saw 9 different players. Their names? The Prince, Wagon Step, 5Thy44, Bradling, Thy Tenor, AABB567, Fivertown, Linko, and Thinope. All of them had diamond armor. 3 of them were on horses, 3 of them were on mules, and 3 were on donkeys. They kinda looked like pros. Intrigued, he watched them. Just up to typical business though. Mining, building, creating. But then, out of nowhere, they just split up. The 3 groups based on steed. Curious, he decided to follow them, going after the mule group first. He listened to their audio. They were going on about a hole that they had dug, not being able to find it or something. That's when out of nowhere, dispensers appeared, and the players were shot at. One of them used an ender pearl to quickly escape, and the other 2 weren't so lucky, being knocked out. That's when something weird came out of the forest nearby. It looked like Alex, but had a trait that the hacker had heard about from very familiar stories. The eyes of HEROBRINE. BRINE. He watched as BRINE slaughtered them all, then disappeared. Scared out of his wit, the hacker typed in some code and found himself now following the trio on donkeys. He watched them for a while, until all of a sudden, much like the dispensers, a bunch of TNT appeared out of nowhere and exploded. That's when BRINE appeared again and more TNT went off, killing all of the players on donkeys. The hacker knew what was next. He typed in some code only to find himself with the players on horseback. And he was right. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but from afar he saw one of them, the Prince, step on a pressure plate. The weird thing was, when he stepped on it, nothing happened, just the familiar noise that came with the pressure plate. But that's when their audio kicked in. They were all laughing about it, with the Prince going over the pressure plate again and again and again as a joke, until kaboom! Hundreds of TNT went off. All the hacker could see through the explosion was an ender pearl being thrown. When the dust cleared, only the Prince was left. But he started running, and ran past the hacker, invisible to the Prince's eyes. And that's when he saw it. BRINE coming out of the trees. She shot the Prince with an arrow. The Prince went down and began to turn into a zombie. That's when the hacker realized BRINE was staring straight at him. It was chilling. All of a sudden he was kicked from the server. And he hasn't hacked since. Up next, we've got Golden Song. This creepypasta comes from an author the name of Nick the Epic. Nick starts off his story by noting that he hasn't been able to play Minecraft for a while. Life gets busy, and sometimes there isn't just enough time to game. So when the winter break came around, he was excited to jump back into the game, looking forward to creating a new world and having a fresh start. Now when he restarted the game, at first it was a lot of just, chopping wood, mining, making a house, hunting animals, the basics really. But he started to get bored, and wanted to do something different. Something cool. So he hopped onto the Minecraft forum to see if there were any new maps to play. One caught his eye, an epic jump map. He downloaded it and started to play. Now a few minutes in, a piece of gold caught his eye, so he ran towards it. What happened next was strange, to say the least. A bright spot appeared on his screen, shaped almost like a person, but it was so bright that he could hardly focus his eyes on it. That's when he heard singing. It seemed as if the singing had powers of sorts. It was attracting nearby objects and entities like zombies and skeletons, and even his coveted gold piece. Trees and dirt also flew towards the figure. Now before Nick's eyes, the whole map was falling apart, being sucked into this bright black hole-esque of a person, their singing ever so potent. That's when he realized he was being pulled closer to them too. The light was blinding, and then he was disconnected. It was weird. Deciding to get some sleep, Nick hopped into bed, but as he drifted off, he heard the song that the person was singing, as if it was far away in the distance. And as he kept his eyes closed, a bright light grew and grew and grew. He never played that map on Minecraft again. Up next we have 234.entity Java error. This pasta tells of a player who was busy in their world, making good progress, and heading towards a village. Now as they approached this village, all of a sudden it was like the game glitched. The villagers he had seen in the distance just disappeared entirely. Now curious, he headed towards the village and a tall, odd-looking structure at its center. Before he could fully look around and get a gauge of everything, boom! TNT after TNT went off, destroying the area around him. He died. And then a message opened up in chat that read, "Killed by entity 234.lang Java error." Thinking nothing of it and about to restart his game, his chat went off again. That's when it got weird. Someone named Java error entity 234 started sending messages, one word at a time to him. Will kill you. The game completely glitched, slowing down. That's when the player noticed what time it was. 2:34 a.m. A strange sound came out of his computer. A program had opened up, as if his computer was infected by some sort of virus. Messages started swarming his screen that read javaerror.exe, "You will suffer like me," and "Feel the pain in my heart." The program then closed and Minecraft booted up. The crash report read, Entity 234 brackets summoned object successfully. Entity 234 brackets Java-lang overload. The player freaked out and deleted his world. When in doubt, just delete your shit. And finally, our very last creepypasta, GLITCHFEST. GLITCHFEST is the story of a player who was part human, part glitch, who had died long ago in the early days of Minecraft without ever getting his revenge for being sucked into the digital world after an experimental game went wrong via a virus. Now the heart of the story starts years later though, with a player on Christmas Day who got a new computer from Santa. After setting it up, the first thing he did was play Minecraft. Now over the years he would play a bunch of different games, but constantly find himself going back to Minecraft whenever he grew bored of other titles. One random afternoon he decided to boot up the game after not having touched it for a while. The game lagged, the first time it had ever done that. Thinking his beloved computer was just finally getting old, he decided he'd exit the game and reboot it in hopes that it would work better. But when he tried to exit, a message appeared on his screen that read, "You will never leave." Weird, he thought, and tried to exit again. But then, the game got glitchy. It would shut off. And that's when he saw him for the first time, GLITCHFEST. He looked like a normal player holding an axe standing at a distance. After a moment, GLITCHFEST ran towards him and killed his player over and over and over again. He tried turning off Minecraft, but it didn't work. Tried rebooting his computer, nothing. Finally, in real life, he yanked the plug out of his computer. Freaked out, he stayed away from the game for a few days, almost entirely forgetting about this strange experience. Now a few days later, when he turned the game on again, it didn't start up as it normally would. Instead, his whole screen turned red. A message appeared, "Die," followed by, "I'll keep you here forever." He rebooted it and the game returned to normal. Now playing in survival mode, he went down into a cave and collected some iron, but when he looked at his inventory, the iron had turned into coal. Annoyed that someone had hacked his computer or some virus was messing with his game, he reset the game again and went about his way. This time he was playing with a mod called Mega Weapons, and he was crafting some new fun swords to use. But that's when the game started to glitch again. Next thing he knew, TNT was exploding all around him, and in the aftermath there stood GLITCHFEST. This time, GLITCHFEST started to chase him. He grew in size, almost 500 blocks tall. The player chugged a sugar rush potion and ran for his life. But GLITCHFEST was fast, he caught him. The game glitched yet again and the player saw a splatter of blood appear on his screen. It looked too realistic to be in the game. Then he heard laughing. And the words, "Did you think you could beat me?" The two then fought. After an arduous struggle, the player managed to knock GLITCHFEST into a lava pit. But as he died, a message appeared from glitchfest.exe. It read, "I will take something you treasure with me forever." A few days later, in real life, the player's dog died of mysterious causes. Which was not the direction I thought this creepypasta was going in. Alright, there we have it friends. What's your favorite Minecraft creepypasta? What's your favorite from the 3 parts that we've done so far? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know. And if you dug this video, spread the love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming for more creepypasta lists just like this one. And of course other gaming news and, content too. We are Top 10 Gaming after all. In the meantime, thanks for watching friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.